So as it's drying, I'm adding a little bit more of this purpley colour. The paper's almost dry where I've put this, but now because it's dry I can make it look all sort of scrappy because it's rough grass. So the purpley colour, which is that ultramarine blue mixed with quinacridone lilac, I think it's called. Never used it before. It's one of these new colours from this set. So yeah, you can see doing that, making it more of a shadowy. There we go. You never know how anything's going to turn out. That's one of the reasons I quite like using watercolour. Because it's also haphazard. You can have many an accident. Sometimes they're happy, sometimes they're not. So I've maintained that light feeling there from where the shadow of the trees are falling. I've also laid in some green here, which is the lemon yellow mixed with a little bit of the ultramarine blue, just a tiny touch, because it's very bright green here. So I wanted to preserve that. And here I've laid in very fine, very diluted purpley mixture for the very faint outline of the hill that's right in the background there. Right, so I'm almost ready to start thinking about the trees which are going here, casting their shadows obviously down here. So I might need to switch brushes for the trees. So I want a smaller brush. So what have I got here? I can use that smaller. These are just cheap brushes. I bought them from Amazon. I don't spend that much on brushes really. I ought to, I suppose, but I find sometimes the cheap brushes are just as good. So for those trees, the colour of those trees is very, very dark. It's that sun. Just checking if it's dried there. It has. So I want something dark. So I am going to use that dark greeny colour I've mixed up, and I'm going to pop. Does that make it? Experimenting here. So into that I am putting, I think it's sepia or umber. Sepia. It's quite a dark colour, dark browny colour. And then I'm going to mix in a little bit more blue into that. There. You can't see what I'm doing. So I've got that colour there. Right, let's think about these trees. So we have a tree shape, branch going that way there. Trees, you pretty much just put the stuff where you feel looks right. So I want the branches going right up to the top of the, I don't know whether that's dark enough, that colour, so let's bleed a bit more into it there. Down there, make that a little bit thicker, maybe, and have another branch coming off it here. There. So make it a little bit thicker down where it meets the tree. Bleed a bit more colour into that. So I want it quite dark, stand out against that. With another tree here. Branched entwining. So take that branch round there like that. Just have fun with the branches. There's lots and lots of stems coming off. Don't forget some of this tree, oh, it's running down there, but that's okay, as long as it doesn't run too far into that, because it is casting its shadow. I like having fun with the tree. Lots of branches, lots. Here we have a closer tree, so I'm going to lay in some of that colour, but then I'm going to mix in a lighter, that's an umbery colour there, and then I'm going to pop it into raw sienna on here, just because it's the side of the tree and it's catching a little bit of that light. So it's quite thick, the paint here. I'm mixing there. Right, and now what I'm going to do, I'm going to rinse that brush off. I'm going to lift some of that out, like, there you go, to lighten up that area there and make it look more like bark. There we go. I'll actually put some of this, make a nice effect on this tree here by lifting a little bit. I'll probably put it back in a minute. Right, so let's finish this bit here with a dainty brush. So these branches go right over here into the sky here. I don't know where that one's quite coming from, but somewhere it's all very squiggly, very mixed up. The brook tree comes here, it sort of leads your eye further down into the picture if you're following the branch. Now we've got a bit of a hedgy thing going on here, so I'm just going to dab like that. And then at one point the hedgy bit gets a bit lighter, so I want a nice greeny but not too green to run into that. That's better. And it all meets up. The reason I keep tapping over there is because I've got my laptop with the reference photo, but I can't really move my phone to show you that. I'll show you later on. I've never worked like this before. I usually work from my phone, not the computer, so that's why everything's a bit squashed up. I'm a faffer when I'm painting. I can't leave things alone. I have to go back and faff with it, which isn't always good in watercolour. You can ruin it like that, but that's just the way I am. Okay, so we've got another bit of a hedge here. So I'm going to use a bit of that. I've got there on my palette, just that greeny, browny colour for the little bit of hedge there. I want another bit of, maybe a bit of raw sienna in there because it gets a bit lighter because it's not too far from the light catching it. I love the way you can just faff with the brushes and it makes all different effects. And we've got another small tree. Let me go dark. There we go. So I'll try that. These paints aren't too bad. They're quite adaptable. I normally use very bright coloured paints called Magello. I discovered them on Amazon, so I discover everything on Amazon, and they're reasonably priced. You see, I want to use good quality paint, but I can't afford the Daniel Smiths all the time. They're so expensive. So I trawl through Amazon looking to see what watercolour paints they've got and read all the reviews to see what everyone recommends. Also, I'm a member of lots of groups on Facebook, watercolour groups, and they're always discussing the best paints. And I noticed Magello come up quite a lot, so I gave them a try. I think they're Chinese, Japanese. These White Knights are actually Russian paints. Right, so I'm going to go a little bit more darker tone there in that hedge at the base. Up to there. That's some of that tone there. There we go. There's that tree there with a hedge behind it. Now we have a little bit of a bush going on here, very fair distance, so a very light mixture, just to faintly suggest some sort of tree going on there on just above the hill. I might go for some work on the fence posts now, so I want quite a dark colour again. So I'm going to mix a darker green. Which green have I got there? I have got, I think that's ultramarine. And then I've got turquoise blue. They're more greeny than blue. Maybe I didn't put them in order in the palette. Perhaps that's the turquoisey. Looks more like it. Right, so I'm going to mix that with the umber, I think, to get a dark. And then looking at that fence, it's more grey black sort of colour, so maybe I'll mix a bit of I just play with the colours to see what I get. Sometimes that's the best thing to do. Sometimes they mix well, sometimes they don't. It's just a case of trial and error, really. Right, so I'm just going to faintly show this fence. I don't think I've got the right colour, but never mind. I can always go back and change and go over it. It's more of a green colour I'm working with here, but that's drawing the eye in now. Don't worry, watered down. dry bit. There's a bit of shadow there. I put the light colour in earlier. Bit of shadow. Run it in together. I'm just dabbing some water on top of this tree now, so that maybe it will make those branches a little less prominent and just blur them slightly. I might do that to my big tree as well, around, because there are lots of branches but you just can't really see them. So by doing that, that's a nice effect, because there are lots more branches but they're sort of blurred, background, whatever. And it's green colour sweeping along here, brightening that up slightly. There. Maybe a little hint of it behind these trees, the green. Just going to pop a few more little branches in, just onto the pathway almost. It's just a quick demo, it's nothing special, but it's my very first one. I've never tried this before. It's so different from when you're painting just by yourself. Normally got the radio on for starts. Right. I think I might need to put a little bit more dark along this. There. There we go. Just darkening that shadow up there. Especially as we get, just really loosely popping water on and then mixing that darker colour into the shadow. So just a hint at rough, grassy terrain really, and then that hint of that goes on to into the just maybe I might join that fence if it's not wet, just to make a hint of a And that is a very quick landscape for you. Now let me show you the reference picture on my computer, if I can unattach this. There we go, that was the reference picture on my computer screen. As you can see, the shadow, the green, the tree, and there's my very quick demonstration. Hope you enjoyed it.